Alright, hey guys, welcome to Indie Game Hustle. My name is Charles, and in this video, we're going to take a look at how we can get a character to swim around in water. Okay, in our last video, we had our character pick up a cube or a mesh and walk around and put it down. And that took some time, so I figured out maybe there'll be a better way to explain how to do the swimming. And this time I think it'll probably go by a lot quicker, because what I'm going to do is I have my player already ready to go. I have the mechanics there, and I'm going to walk you through the swim mechanic and talk about the different triggers and the actions that go along with it. So basically, it's going to be a little bit more straightforward, because I assume that you already know how to use Game Creator, or at least you understand some of the basics of putting in triggers and actions and that sort of thing. So if you are not familiar with actions and triggers, you can still follow along, but I definitely would recommend you taking a look at some of the other videos that kind of go in more in depth on how to actually create an action, create a trigger, create a condition, that sort of thing. Other than that, let's go ahead and get started and take a look at what swimming looks like in this case. Now, of course, there's going to be many ways that you can probably make your character swim, but this was a quick way if you wanted to kind of get something prototyped and working. So here I have a player just kind of running around, and I have a little ramp here. So as I walk into the water, we start swimming, and as we swim, we dive deeper into the water, and we have an animation playing. And as I hit the space button, I can go ahead and raise in the water. All right, and as I come over to this ramp, I can get off and do that. And of course, that's it. And we can, of course, jump back in, boom, and we can get right into the water. Don't mind the weird legs there. That's just some animation I got from one of the websites like Mexamo, I believe. But this is not an animation tutorial. This is more about understanding how we approached getting the character to recognize the water and to change its animation to that. All right, so now that we've seen that, let's go ahead and take a look at the actual trigger and actions that make that work. All right, so of course in the scene we have a basic scene with some meshes here, and that's all pretty standard stuff. This cube, however, is just a standard cube. If you want to make your cube kind of blue but transparent, it's pretty much just a material with a standard transparent rendering mode set, and that's how that works. So pretty straightforward stuff there. And let's see here. So this cube, so first things first, we need the player to recognize that it's in water. So you're gonna need to have a tag in this case. So if you're not familiar with how to make a tag, you would click on the object that you need here, and if you go to the top right inside the inspector where it says tag, you would just go down to add tag, and you would just go ahead and create a tag and save it, right? And I have a tag called water. I won't actually need this exit, so we'll just go ahead and remove that for now. But basically, once you create the tag, you want to go select the object and then go and select the tag that you just created. And so there. So that will be one of our first steps to getting our scene ready to receive our player. All right. So in terms of triggers, there's going to be, let's see, I believe I have 3 triggers set up for this to work, and I also have 3 different actions set up for this to work. We have a trigger that triggers a set of actions when you enter the water tag. We have a trigger that gets ready for actions when you exit the water, and then we have a button trigger for the swimming upwards or the floating upwards. Okay, all right, so the first trigger is a pretty simple trigger. This trigger is an on tag enter. So to get to on tag enter, you would just simply create your trigger Here you can go to add component and you can just search for trigger. And when you select that, you can create a trigger, and then you can change trigger to, let's see here, object, and I believe it's on tag enter there. So you would select on tag enter, and that's how you would do that. All right, and then object tag, you would select the tag that you want. So you have water, so I'll just go ahead and select water. All right, perfect. And then the next type of trigger that we're gonna need is an exit tag. Now, of course, I'm gonna slow down here. If you don't know how to create triggers within the hierarchy, you can just right click here and just do like game creator trigger, and that will get you going. All right, so the next trigger that I have set up is an exit tag. And this one is very similar. It's gonna be on tag exit instead of enter, and we're gonna select the same thing, water, okay? And then the third tag is gonna be the button press. And here we're gonna do change trigger, and we're gonna select on key down, right? So input, and then you would do on key down. All right, great. So once you create those three triggers, they'll just pretty much just be blank triggers. Then we'll create the actions. So the first thing you want to do is select your trigger, and then you want to go ahead and select create an action, and then it's going to create an action for you. It's going to probably drop it within your trigger, and it'll probably say like actions 1 or something, right? So the first set of actions that we need are the actions when we actually enter the water. So what's happening is when you enter the water, you're gonna have to remove a bunch of different things from the player, as if, you know, like we don't want him to jump anymore. We want the gravity to change. We want a lot of different things to change. We want the animation to change, that sort of thing. So we're just gonna kind of turn off a bunch of things and set some things here. So the first thing I wanna do is assign a bool. Now, you don't actually need this variable set up in order for our swimming to work, but it's good to have it just in case you need a way to track that your player is in the water, right? So if you're not familiar with how to create a variable, just go to Game Creator Preferences. And in your preferences, you would just simply go to Name New Variable, hit plus key, and you would create your variable this way. And you can select bool for the data type, okay? All right. So once you do that, you can just basically go select global variable and select your variable from your list, and then you can just set it to true, okay? Because swimming is true once he enters the water, okay? All right, so the next action that you want to look for will be change player is controllable, right? This action here, when they enter the water, of course, we want them to still be controllable, right? Because you're still moving your player around, so that's there. We want to change the gravity to -5. We want the gravity to change as well, because we want our player to constantly go down. But we want them to go down at a slower rate. Right now, I believe the normal gravity is -9.81. So setting this value down to -5 is gonna make them go down just a little bit slower, okay? All right, and let's go ahead and see how that looks, right? So right now we're at a -5, and let's see how slow -5 goes. It should work. Let's see here. So we're going down just like so. And if I was to select my player, you see our gravity here is at a -5. Now I'm gonna go up some, and then I'm going to change my gravity to something higher. And it's gonna keep changing it back. Because we have some things set, but it's going to go down much faster once the gravity is at a lower rate, right? So let's see here. The next one in our list is changing the player's fall speed, and that's something else that we want to definitely change. I have it set to 0.4. Okay, and so you want to have that set up. Now, if you're not familiar with this particular icon, you can find this icon in the character action, and it's going to be character change property right here. Okay. All right. The next one is going to be change the player can jump. We want to set that to false, and that's going to be in the same character property, change the property attributes. And there's a bunch of different attributes here that you can play with and that we're changing. So that's going to be very useful for all types of different actions that you're going to use in the future. So we want to do that. Now, this is where the animation takes place, where we're basically going from like a normal idle animation to just a basic swimming animation. There's two ways to go about this one. You can change it to an animation clip like I have, and all this clip is doing is literally just doing a loop of a swimming animation. It's pretty basic. There's no complexity to it. It's just forward moving. But if you want your character to have like an idle state and a movement state and all of those different types of states, then you may want to change it to state accent, and you have to set up a locomotion type of thing. But for now, we just have animation clip, and I'll click on my swimming and show you what that animation kind of looks like. It's just a standard animation here. Nothing great. Feet are kind of messed up, but it's good enough for prototyping, just to see if we can get it to work. Okay. All right. So for the next one, what we want to do is set the head IK, the head IK, the hands and the feet. You don't necessarily have to do this. I've played with it, enabled it and disabled it. I don't see a huge difference, but it can mess probably with certain getting in contact with certain objects in your scene or in the water. So you might want to turn this off. Just keep that in mind. I do have that turned off. We're messing with the player's run speed as well. So right now the player can move in the water at a 2.5. Let's see here. Once I'm in the water, as you can see, as I move left and right, kind of gives me a nice little pull, like a drag. It's kind of slow, methodical, like you would assume you would be underwater. Now, if I go back and change this value to something like 6 and hit play, that's going to, it should, of course, increase the speed, as you can see. So now we're moving way faster, and that's pretty interesting. So something to think about depending on maybe the type of water you're in. Maybe the scenario is a little different for you in the scene. So whatever the case is, you can have that value changed by selecting that change property value. Very similar to those, right? The next one, we're going to change the player's height. You can change the player's height from a 2 to a 1 or to a 0.5. It just depends on how big you want the collider for the player to be. I use this when I'm using my crouching mechanic, and so when I want to go under something, it changes the height of the player. So maybe you need to change the height of the player once he's in the water, so that it's when he's going under maybe a tunnel or something, you want that height to be reduced. So you might want to play with that there. Now, the next 3 are going to be very important. This right here is a set active object. And what we're doing with this is, you see the trigger exit tag? That's the triggers that we currently have in the off position. So right now they're basically not active. Okay. We want at the end, once you enter the water, we want to set active this trigger. And then the one under it, we want to set active the press button float up. Okay. And then we want the third one, we want to turn off the enter tag. And so this one's going to turn off, and I'll show you that right now. So right now we're kind of outside the water and we are good to go. But the moment that we touch the water, the enter tag turns off and the exit tag and the button press float up tag turns on. The reason is because those conditions or those triggers are going to trigger when we exit. And so they're going to have a similar setup, in a way reversing everything that we did in our enter tag. So now when I walk out, it reverses it. And so we're kind of right back to the state that we need to be in. And so that's one way that you can play with that. Okay. All right, great, perfect. All right, and I do notice my feet are in the ground, but that probably has something to do with the height not being readjusted, but that's okay, we can fix that later. All right, great. So once you set it up, if you're not sure what the set active action is, you can search for it, or you can just type in set and go down and you can select set active. Okay, basically the check mark means true, meaning active, and when the check mark is off, it means false, and you're basically making it inactive when that action is activated. All right, great. So these actions are when we enter the water. It's basically saying, hey, you're in the water, it is time for you to swim. Now, this trigger is going to be when you leave the water. Okay, so again, on exit tag, when you leave the object, when you exit the object with the tag water, here are the actions. Now we have our variable, right? And again, if you're not sure, you can find that variable by going to variables, and by going to variable bool and selecting your variable. And we're just going to make this false now because we're leaving the water, so therefore swimming is false. All right. So the next one, and this is one of the most important ones. It took me a while to find this because I didn't even know it existed. So I was looking for a bunch of other ways to do this, and I came across this one action that solved my problem. This is called cancel action. And this action, once it's activated, it will literally stop an action from finishing its set of actions, right? So the action I have in here is called floating up, okay? And I have it set to stop immediately. What was happening was I have this button press and this action called floating up. And what happened was when you're leaving the water, and you're trying to, say you're leaving the water, and I'll show you. Say you're in the water and you're playing the game, right? We didn't change the speed, but it's okay. When we're in the water and we're leaving it, what happens is you might have your finger on the jump button and you're doing this. You might hear me hitting my space key, but you're hitting that jump button. What happened was my trigger button float up was being activated when I leave the water. And generally speaking, those actions were still happening in the background. So when I changed my float up, it was changing my gravity and my fall speed and everything. And so when I got out here, I started floating up into the space, and I didn't like that. So what this does is it cancels it immediately. So the second that you leave the water, no matter what inputs you're making, that action just gets stopped. It just doesn't take it into account anymore. So you want to make sure that you have this action here, and then once we create the action for floating up, you're going to want to put your actions floating up into that space. The next action here is going to be gravity, and so what we're doing here is setting the gravity back to the normal gravity or the unity gravity to a negative 9.81 or whatever gravity you have your game set at. And here we're changing the fall speed back to negative 100. And again, this is that character property action. And then here we're making sure that we can jump still, right? We're changing our run speed back to 4 so that once we're out, we're running at the speed we need to. We're making our character controllable, which we don't have to do this, but I just put it in there so it reminds me, hey, my character should be controllable during this time. And let's see here. And now we're resetting our animation, or we're resetting our character state. So whatever state is normal, like this is our normal state, we're basically telling game creator, hey, I need you to return it the minute that we leave this water. I need you to go back to your normal reset state. And this is super important to have. All right, and so now we're back at those set active actions, and I'll just go ahead and open these 3 up. The first one here I have is the exit tag. So we're gonna immediately turn off the exit tag because we're leaving the water. Next one, we have the enter tag. We're gonna go ahead and turn that on because we're outside the water. And then the last one, we're turning off the button float trigger, right? And we're gonna turn that off as well. Even though it's part of the exit tag, I do have it set off because that's just the way it was working for me in this case, right? All right. And last but not least, let's take a look at our button. Now this one's super easy, super simple. So the button float up, it's a key down. I have it set to the spacebar because I think my jump is spacebar. So naturally, if you're in the water, I still want to have it to feel like I'm moving upwards with the space. So I use that. You can use whatever key you want. Or if you're using both a combination of keyboard and controller input, you can do a additional trigger, right? And then you can just drag that action into the same slot. And now you can just pick a different key code for your controller. All right, let's take a look at the action. So this action is interesting, right? So what's happening is we're changing the gravity to 0.5. It's not negative, it's 0.5. So it's gonna gradually go up at a very slow rate, okay? Then it's gonna wait for 1 second. So what this is basically doing is when I get in the water, and I'm gonna let the player just drop down a little bit, I'm gonna hit the space bar. It's gonna wait for a second, it's gonna go up. And in this case, it's not going up because it's just the gravity is still going down. But in this case, it's kind of stopping it. But check this. I'm gonna hit the space bar a couple times. See? So now we're just putting those inputs in, and it kind of gives me a nice feel like I'm kind of trying to wade through the water a little bit here. And of course, everything is going to be different based on your game or what you want it to feel like, but this is how you would control that, right? So I'm just going to kind of keep hitting that space bar, and it's going to kind of get to the top. And as soon as he gets out the water, it's going to make it to where he's out the water, right? Boom. Perfect. All right, nice. And then after that 1 second, it takes me right back down. And so now if you want to play with that, you can kind of mess with these values a little bit, but I found that these felt pretty good. You can change the wait time, but just keep in mind, if you set the wait time to something high, like 5 seconds, he's just going to continue to go up for 5 seconds until he can't go up, because the minute that he's out of the water, what's going to happen? It's going to cut that action immediately. So that's pretty much it for our swimming. I wanted to keep this, pretty straightforward and easy for you guys, and I hope it makes lots of sense. Let's just take a look at what we have in the hierarchy. Again, I have mechanics under my player. Just like I have pickup, I created a empty game object, named it swim, and then I just created the triggers, and then I focused on the actions, connected everything, and it's all one nice little package for you to use and turn on and off as needed. Say you're halfway through your game and maybe you don't want swimming right now activated for whatever reason. You can just have it turned off and have it activate at some point in the game, maybe during a tutorial or something at point in your game. I don't know, whatever you dream of or whatever idea you come up with, I'm sure it'll be pretty dope. All right, cool. There's other things you can do, but you probably want to go ahead and use your imagination on how you can use this and manipulate it and make it work for your game. Just have fun. I hope this was useful for you guys. I hope it wasn't too long. I know my last one was a bit long. I wanted to try to get this one short. So let me know if you like this format, if you like me just kind of going through the setup that I have and just explaining it one by one. If you like that, I'll continue to do that. I may even go back and redo the pickup like that if you prefer it. So just let me know in the comments. And of course, remember you guys, making games can be tough, using actions and triggers and conditions, and you just got to learn it, right? You just got to be creative with it. Game Creator is pretty open. It's pretty lenient, and a lot of it to me just makes a lot of sense. I really enjoy Game Creator a lot, so I hope you guys do. But when things get tough, don't give up. Just ask questions. We're in the Discord all the time. I'm still learning, but there's so many other people there who know a lot of stuff about not just Game Creator, but just Unity in general, so they can help you there. So reach out in the Discord. I'll have the links in the YouTube description area to get to the Discord and check out Game Creator and check out their YouTube page for their tutorials to help get you started in certain aspects. And that's pretty much it. But as always, guys, remember, never give up and keep moving forward. Peace.